Hi everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I did pop on a few minutes ago and my internet connection kind of freaked out. So I'm back. And if you saw that little bitty tiny blurb, I apologize. So my name is Tracy King. I'm the bulletin board lady, and you can follow me on Twitter at Tracy King. You can follow me on Instagram as the bulletin board lady. And I guess you found me on Facebook because here we are. Today, even though it's the day before Halloween, today we're going to talk about ideas for Thanksgiving and November workstations. My Novembers, probably like yours, are just a little bit weird. And some classes are canceled and some classes we miss a lot of days. There are lots of different assemblies and lots of things going on. This month for me, we're off November 4th for a professional development day. Yay! November 11th for Veterans Day, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of Thanksgiving week. And I have a concert right when we come back, right after Thanksgiving break. So I'm feeling the stress of not being there every single day this month in November. So I am planning some workstations with my third graders. My fourth graders are preparing for a concert. And so when we are preparing for a concert, I generally don't do workstations until we're finished because we're using every single minute to get ready. So this month for third grade, I'm kicking around a few ideas and I'm going to share some of those with you tonight. So my third graders right now are working on some rhythmic and melodic dictation. We're using quarter notes and barred eighth notes, half notes, and whole notes. They're doing a pretty good job. We just finished a little assessment with Miss White had a fright in the middle of the night. Saw a ghost eating toast halfway up the lamp post. And I use a worksheet by Lindsay Jervis that I really, really like for that. And they did so great when I assessed this orally. So they were just knocking it out of the park. One by one we did it, and I put the worksheet in front of them, and it kind of had mixed results. And these were just ta, TT, and quarter note rest patterns. This shouldn't have been difficult. So that tells me that I just need to work a little bit on connecting what I've taught. Maybe I missed a step or something in there. So I'm going to address some of that in workstations in November. So let me get started and tell you what I'm going to do. So the first thing that we'll do in our set of workstations are vocal explorations. And I think I've talked about these before. With these, there's a Thanksgiving set. And with this Thanksgiving set, they just start on one side. So like this is, let me see if I can get back far enough. This is little turkey and he's going on the boat and they follow the path to get higher or lower. So what's really fun is that they can do almost anything to vocalize with. They can do ooh, ooh. They could do zzz, zzz. They could even gobble, gobble, or whatever. And it's really, really, really fun for them to do. So vocal explorations is a really fun workstation. In this Thanksgiving set, I have several blank sheets, and I didn't set those blank sheets out, but they look just like this, except they don't have a line drawn in already. And when I'm doing these at a workstation, I like to print them out. I usually, when I'm using them with the whole class, I just put them up on the smart board and somebody comes up and takes one of the smart pens and just draws the pattern. But with these, I like to have them laminated, and then I'll include some dry erase markers and some erasers so that every kid can actually design their own vocal exploration. And what they find is that the simpler the better. Some of them get very elaborate with their vocal explorations, and then they also get to pick what sound they're going to use, whether they do a hum or a whistle or the zzz or gobble 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 or whatever it is. And this leads to great discussions about the sounds that we make that have pitch and that don't have pitch, and so that helps them to make good choices. And you'll even hear conversations within the groups of the kids that are working together going, that doesn't make a high and low sound, and I can't match your sound, which is exactly the kind of conversations that I want them to have there. So they can just keep doing these over and over and over until it's time to move to the next workstation. I generally try to plan 6 to 8 minutes at each workstation, and I see my kids for about 50 minutes one time a week. And that works out pretty good for me. So this is a great easy station to throw in to kind of mix up what we're doing in our other stations. I always have my reading station available during workstations, and still deciding whether I'm going to use that one or if I'm going to make my 5th or 6th center something else. But there are some great Thanksgiving books to include. A lot of them are songs that have been turned into books, or vice versa. I like to use Take Me Home Country Roads. There's a beautiful illustrated version of that. David Rao just talked about the Simple Gifts book. It's got this kind of Picasso looking cat on it that's really, really good. Jingle Bells Over the River. There's a book called Leaf Man, and it's by Lois, somebody that I'm forgetting right now, but it's also a great book to include. And I do a movement activity with it earlier in the semester, and so students really love to have that book in the reading station so that they can take a closer look at the illustrations, and it kind of sparks their imagination a little bit. So if you didn't watch David Rao's PD in Your PJs on Monday, you can go check out his Facebook page and check that out. And he talks about some great Thanksgiving books that would be good to put in your reading station, or maybe to highlight, but either, just bringing them out or making them some of the only selections that your kiddos can choose from. So another station that I'm going to include, and I know we've talked about this before, is Thanksgiving Clip It. And this has students match the words to rhythms. So if they have butter, does that most closely represent ta, ti, or ti, ta? And so they would clap the pattern and they would say, oh, butter and ti sound most the same, and they would take a clothespin and they would pin that. And the Thanksgiving one has there's a hungry bear, and here's football, and there are several like that. So this is a pretty easy station. It takes a little bit longer to clean up than some of the other stations. I have kids take a card, pin their answer, set it down, take a card, pin their answer, set it down. And then when all of the cards are finished, they swap with a neighbor and check their answers. And then they take them all apart and they go back and put them together. And they just keep swapping until it's time to move. But this station usually needs just a little bit of extra time to get all of the clothespins off of the Clip It card. So something to consider. You might want to walk around in 20 seconds or so before you're about to announce to everyone that it's time to change workstations. You might have them start cleaning up a little bit so that they're ready about the time that everybody else is. Another station, and I know this sounds boring, but sometimes we need paper assessments. The Clip It station was evaluating that same scale that I was working on with Miss White Had a Fright. Can you pick out the rhythm for each of the lines? And so this is a good way to practice that again. And then we're going to take a look at some musical math. And this worksheet is from the November bundle of worksheets that's in my store. And it talks about poppies. And then at the bottom of the page, it talks about why we wear poppies. So there's a little bit of history there. So this one asks students to add up the number of beats for each note on the poppies and put the answer in the center. And so I'm hoping that will help reinforce that. When we play these patterns out, they're really, really good about clapping or playing the correct rhythms. But when I ask them, how many counts does a half note get? I'm not always getting a successful answer. So we just need a little bit more practice with, this is the half note, this is the ta-ah, how many counts is that? So they're getting it. And so I think this will be a good way to reinforce it. I'd also considered from the same selection of worksheets, counting casseroles, because that seems all Thanksgiving-y and family traditions. And what students do on this one is that they count how many beets are on each casserole, and then they use, and I know this is backwards, I'm so sorry. And then they use their crayons to color in. So if there were 2 beets in there, it would be green, and 3 would be another color, and 4, and so on. And that way they get to answer by coloring. I find that students are really, really engaged when they get to color in music class, because some grades don't really get to color at all. So I love it when I could include assessment with that. And this is quick and easy. This would be something that they could finish, or mostly finish, in the 6 to 8 minutes that they're going to have at my workstation. What happens if they don't finish? I just grade what is finished. So if they finish like 6 of these and they're all correct, I'm going to assume that the rest of them probably would be correct. So their grade would be based on what they had finished. This also is great for when you're dealing with special learners and you need to modify the number that they do. Then I never tell them that at the beginning of the workstation, but when I go back to grade it, if maybe they've done 4 and everyone else has completed the whole thing, then I'll just grade them on the 4 that they have there, thinking that they've made that adjustment and modification. And that way I think it works out to those learners, especially if I was walking the room and I wasn't able to give them as much time as I really wanted to give them at that station. So these are all in the November worksheet bundle that I have in my store. Actually, now's a good time to talk about this. Today and tomorrow, I'm throwing a beautiful sale, and everything in my store is 20% off. So that's today and tomorrow only. Tomorrow is Halloween, and it's a little hectic. So if you've got a few things that were on your wish list, you might want to run and snag them tonight so that you don't miss that. Okay, next station. This is Rapid Clap It Music Match It, and this actually I really have only used, well gosh, I've used it with a lot of different grade levels, but I really seem to hit 2nd and 3rd grade a lot with that. So what you do with Rapid Clap It Music Match It is you have 3 little kind of mats, and you set them down on the floor, and they're like, they say 1 syllable and 2 syllables and then 3 syllables, and they have patterns for that. And then students have a whole bunch of cards that go with it. Like there's pumpkins, there's stuffing, there's corn. And students take the card, they say the name, they rap it, they say the name, they clap it. So they would clap stuffing or corn, and then they decide, does this go in the 1 syllable pile or does this go on the 2 syllable pile? And they sort the cards accordingly. Now they do that as a group. Their workstation group sorts the cards so that they're figuring out how many syllables in each, and then they do a quick worksheet, and the worksheet is just asking them to do essentially what they did with Clip It, but this time they're just putting it down on the paper. And this goes really, really fast, because after they've sorted the cards together and worked to figure those out, this is really just kind of recording what it is that they're doing. So I found that they really, really like this. Most groups finish up a minute or 2 early, or just right on time with this one. Probably because when they're sorting through their cards, they're a little chatty. Like, oh, I love stuffing. Oh, my grandma puts raisins in it. It's so gross, and blah, blah, blah. So sometimes I think the conversations just get a little bit out of hand, and that's why they don't always get finished in that 6 to 8 minutes. And then another station that I'm going to try this year, usually I've done this in small groups, or I've done this individually, but I don't see why it wouldn't work as a workstation, and that's turkey composing. And this essentially is one that I'm going to show as a sample. But what they do in this set of worksheets that are hot off the presses on my website, the first kind that you can do, just ask students to choose a 1 beat set of notes or rests. So in this one, it's just ta, rest, or tt, and to put one in each circle. And then they start on one side and they clap through the turkey feathers, and they've composed a pattern, and then they can share it with a friend, or they can do, line the turkeys up and do all the turkeys in a certain order. And then as they have time, then they can color their turkey. The important part is getting the rhythm part down, and then the coloring is just a little bit of icing on the cake. This is also great to display in the hall. They're usually very, very proud of their turkeys. Their turkeys usually look more like peacocks than turkeys, but that's all right. We will take a colorful, more beautiful world if that's what happens. And my hunters in my classroom, because I teach in rural Missouri, they're all about the browns and the grays and the blacks. And they're like, real turkeys aren't purple, Mrs. King. So anyway, you get a lot of variety with this. The other kind that's included in this set is, let me sure I show you the right one. Is the Melodies. So in this one, it's set up the same. The worksheet looks the same, but students are asked to first go through and choose the rhythm. So they're still choosing ta, tt, or rest, or other versions include 4/16 notes, and the third version includes all of those notes plus T ticka and ticka T. So this can work for, first grade through fifth grade easily, depending on which worksheet you give them. So this time it asks students to go through and to write the rhythm. So one of the rhythms, I usually give them choices. This is a picture of the harder one there. And then they're going to also assign a pitch name. Now, in the past when I've done this, I have given them limited pitches. Like we were only going to compose C, D, E, or B, A, G, or like the C pentatonic, so that we would take out F's and B's, but everything else, just so that when they would move to an instrument, they would get a more pleasant and satisfying sound than if they just did it, all helter-skelter. But you can do it helter-skelter and it still completely works. I just usually give them some guidelines. And with third grade, I almost always say C, D, E, or B, A, G, just to start out with. Later in the year, when we do some other composing activities that are similar to this, they may get a little bit more leeway, but by then they'll also have had conversations about what makes a good composition and talk about repetition and how to make things different, but still, working within that same context. So they'll have a little bit more experience with that. So this has turned out some amazing little melodies, and the kids can't wait to share theirs with the group. So when I've done this as small groups and individual work, after we had composed and we had assigned the pitches, we would take some minutes at the end of class, and anybody who wanted to share their pattern or their song with the group could. I usually used glockenspiels for this, because I had a whole bunch of glockenspiels, or some Orff instruments, something like that, and had them just practice really, really quietly, like with the other end of their sticks sometimes. I may try it this year on iPads. There are several websites that have like digital xylophones that you can like touch, and then you can kind of turn the sound down a little bit more on the iPad, or with piano keys, because there are some apps that have the piano keys and they also have the pitches named on them. And I thought that might be kind of a fun way to try this in a different way. I think for this month, because my iPads aren't quite ready, I think that I'm probably going to stick to the glockenspiels to do this kind of composition. So this is in my store now, and if you're interested in any of these other workstations that I've talked about, you can check out the link that's in the description of this video, and it'll take you to a page that has those links there. If you have any questions, or if you can't find anything and you want to know where I got it or something like that, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email or contact me on one of my social media platforms, because I would love to be able to help you if I can. That being said, I am moving in a couple of days, so if I don't respond immediately to you, that is not because I won't. It's just, it is really overwhelming to work and to pack everything and to get all of that ready to go by Saturday. I'm sure that some of you completely understand that. But as we're going forward, I will definitely get back to you, but it may take me just a couple of days this week. So I hope that you have a fabulous Halloween tomorrow, and I really hope that you've been inspired tonight to plan some workstations for your crazy, crazy November. Until next time, I'll see ya.